Good afternoon, everybody, friends, co-workers, colleagues, and comrades are in the Working Class Culture and Pedagogy Standing Group at the C's. So my name is Axel Gonzalez. You probably have seen my name around in the Facebook group if you're a part of the Facebook group, which I'm imagining you are. Almost all of you are who are current members of the standing group. If you were at the C's too, I went there with Jennifer and Justin to do our sponsored panel, to have the business meeting. You also saw me there as well. But for those of you who weren't there, who didn't get to see me and say hi and be a part of our panel, this will probably be the first time you're seeing my face and hearing my voice. So yeah, just wanted to introduce myself. I am the current chair of the standing group. I've been the chair for the past year. I was serving with Jennifer, who has had to step down for personal and time reasons. And so, by the way, there is an open seat next to me to serve with me as a chair for the rest of this year, or maybe even going forward. We'll see how that happens, because it is just me right now as the chair of the group. Email me about that. Say something to the Facebook group about that if you want. We'll go into that. I'll go into that a little bit more detail in just a bit. But I'm making this video because after we were done with the C's, we had a great business meeting. Even though it was just me and Jennifer and Justin and a new person there, it was just the four of us discussing business, right? And so, but we came up with a lot of great ideas and plans that I'm here sort of like distilling, polishing up, building upon, and all this is with the idea that by the time we're all seeing each other again at Spokane in 2024. The group looks a lot different. It's much more active. It's bigger than it was this time, right? And so I have a couple of different action items. I think the last time I checked, there was like 6 or 7 action items. So different little like goals and missions to accomplish before we go to Spokane in April of 2024, so that we can sort of completely rebuild and reimagine the group from the ground up, right? Part of this is also because we were at the C's. The business meeting was very tiny. Like I said, just me, Jennifer, and Justin, and a new person. But the sponsored panel that we had after the business meeting was extremely productive. We had a bunch of people there. There's all sorts of people at the C's, at other types of conferences who want to talk about the stuff that we're talking about: working class studies, working class issues in the classroom, working class pedagogy, right? The kind of stuff that is just not being talked about elsewhere, as far as I'm concerned, really, elsewhere in our field of study, certainly at the C's for the most part. And so I think that is a lot of great momentum, that kind of enthusiasm from new people that we saw at the C's, interested in what we're talking about. We have a great opportunity this year to really take that momentum and build something out of it. So like I said, when we were at Spokane, the group is bigger, it's different, it's more active, and at all times, we are keeping up this idea, this image of us as an active group, right? Like we're always doing something. People are always talking. We're getting stuff done. I'll explain what I mean by getting stuff done in a second in this video. But this video for people who are already members, for you guys, this is also for your benefit in terms of like, the leadership at the group is up to stuff, is planning things out, and I will be helping to craft policy and missions and direction of the group with the 2 members of the steering committee, Nicole McNeil and Nicole Wilson. And as you'll see here in a second, there'll be opportunities for you, if you want to be part of the leadership group, helping guide the direction of the standing group. With all that in mind, I have a nice little pretty PowerPoint to go over. Now you see that? Looks great, doesn't it? I actually drew the background in like 5 minutes for this PowerPoint presentation. So what I have here, I've called this the Spokane Plan 2023-2024. Like I said before, there's a couple of action items, and action items, missions, goals, general things to shoot for by the time, things to accomplish, things to be accomplishing by the time we're at Spokane in 2024, right? And so let's go over the first one. So this is the most important action item to me. I think this is really going to define the whole year for us. This is base building. This is the first action item. So this, like I said, is going to be the dominant theme for 2023. And what I mean by base building, I've actually delineated here. Base building here, as far as I'm concerned, covers 3 different types of goals, right? So the first goal is rebuilding the active membership, right? So I know the the Facebook group looks really big. There's hundreds of members, but I think if you kind of cut away a lot of the people who are just kind of hanging on, the people who are sort of dead subscribers, to use a kind of social media term, right? Uh, it, there is not a lot of people who are active on there. There's like a handful of us. I think generously there's like a dozen of us who are there any one time, looking at things, sharing links, talking to each other. And so it's a very tiny, so while the number itself may look impressive on the Facebook group, the actual discussion and activity is very tiny. So this is, part of this is aiming to actually increase activity. Another part is also to increase the raw number of members. So again, the number of the Facebook group looks impressive, but when you count, of course, the people who are just hanging on, who haven't been logged on in a long time, that's a lot of people. The people who don't come to the C's, that's also a lot of people, right? So if you're actually just a boiled down member in terms of like someone who is actually sort of keeping up with what's going on, that is still a pretty small number. Of course, active membership smaller still, but a big goal for this year will just be increasing the raw number of members, and what that means is increasing the number of new members from now until Spokane. And then the third part of this base building action item is to encourage the existing membership to be more active. So I did just kind of describe the people who were just kind of sort of hanging on in the Facebook group, not really looking at it, not really like sharing links or clicking on the links we're looking at or looking at our posts or talking with each other, right? I did just kind of describe them as like dead weight, fat to be trimmed off. I don't think I really believe that. That's not necessarily true. It's more just like what can be done to encourage people who are just sort of ghosting around, who are just sort of like floating around and lurking. How do we encourage them to be more active, assuming that they still want to be a part of what we're doing, right? So those are the 3 points of base building. And so I said at the first line item of this action item that I want to increase the active membership. So what does it mean to be active? So I have a couple of different points here. I think the simplest and easiest way to track activity is just engagement on our social media. So I'll talk about social media in a second. It's not just our Facebook. It'll be, of course, this YouTube channel, which is what this will be posted on. The raw views, the raw comments, stuff like that. Eventually, when we're on like Twitter and Instagram and stuff like that, it'll be like reposting. It'll be sharing those links with other people. It'll be commenting on them, right? So we're talking about like the very minimal effort in terms of like what it means to be active in our group. Because right now, of course, we have a physical presence, but that's only once a year at the C's. We are still sort of a group organized digitally over social media. So the more that we can boost up those numbers, those analytics numbers, I think that is a great baseline to track activity by the membership. In a deeper way, serving on committees is also a great way to track active membership, right? So right now it is just me and Nicole McNeil serving on the steering committee. I'm one of the chairs. You'll see in a second, I will be expanding opportunities to serve on certain committees to be able to do certain stuff. And as the year goes on, there'll be more and more opportunities to do kind of like committee work, to be part of the leadership group. So I think a big part of like being active will be being a part of the leadership group with me and the two Nicoles, right? There'll be a lot, like I said, there'll be a lot more opportunities and openings to do so for people who are interested in contributing to the standing group. Next, in terms of activity, is publishing on our platform. So we're building up the website. In the future, we really want to have our own kind of like our own sort of online open access journal way down in the future once the website has its feet up and we're posting stuff on there. But platform here is also things like what goes on our future Instagram account, what goes on the YouTube account. I have a lot of ideas for that already, but I do want to involve as many members as possible in deciding and creating what goes up on those types of things. That is what I consider publishing. And so the more that we have members contributing to that, the more activity we just have, the more visible activity, and I think the busier and more productive we looked to the outside, to non-members. And then once we step away from our computers, or once we're not on like the social media accounts, there is meeting and talking between each other, right? So there is like, are we emailing each other? Are we talking to each other offline, or at least are we like texting each other's thing? You know, are we building connections that we wouldn't have had without the group? That's the important question here. And the more that we build those connections for existing members and for new members, I think the more that we can say that we are active. And I think the more that members can testify to that happening, right, meeting and talking to new people, email, or even like physically, the better that looks, the better that makes us look. And so now that we have defined activity in those 4 aspects, how do we encourage activity? So the main way that we're going to encourage activity is through example, right? So for me, this is sort of my task right here. This will be a task for Nicole McNeil, Nicole Wilson. This will be the task for anyone who wants to be part of the leadership group. Is leading by example, encouraging through example. So if you are going to be part of this leadership group, and again, this is my goal as well, we must be maintaining a constant stream of activity. And so what that means is that on our so for the social media stuff, right, we are constantly posting. I haven't had a chance to post this much because I've been busy, basically busy with this, building all this together so I can explain it to you guys. But I will be doing way more in the future. You will see me everywhere. You'll be hearing me talk and present a lot more, right? And I want to open up opportunities for people to be able to do that too. And so the more that the regular membership sees people in the committees, or even sees other regular members just always posting stuff, contributing to our social media, publishing things in our platform, as I said, the more that encourages future activity, right? It's like a restaurant, you know. We want to be a restaurant on the corner of a street with big wall-sized windows, big enough that people passing by can look inside and they see a busy restaurant. And as we all know, busy restaurants are what look the most attractive to customers trying to decide where they want to eat. And so that's the model that we should have, right? If you want to be part of the leadership like I am, like the 2 Nicoles are, or if you just want to contribute in your own small way, you should always be posting is the first thing. Always be posting, always be publishing, always be sharing news with each other. And as I'll go over in a little bit, I'm going to be opening up new venues in which we can do that. But beyond that, if you're not someone who has a lot to post or who has a lot to share, if you're more just like someone here to be a part of what we're doing, but you don't have like content to give us to share with the group, I think the next thing that you could help do is in outreach. So by outreach here is just like, are you spreading the word of our group to other people, right? You know, we're all working in some aspect, and yet we are probably the single working class culture and pedagogy standing group member at our institution, even though we're probably working with like dozens of adjuncts, other assistant professors, other English instructors of all kinds, right? Even if you're someone like me, an independent scholar, I'm constantly talking and am around English instructors, and I'm the only person I know who's doing stuff like this, who aren't like, you know, outright the socialist labor organizers, right? But reaching out to them, too, people like that is also important. So the more that we are seen doing that, again, the better that we look, the more productive we look, the more attractive we look as a standing group. And as we attract more people who are constantly doing stuff, well, that's the goal, right? The goal is that this standing group is a means to which we accomplish important scholarship and scholarly connections and networks and modes of research, right? So part of that is starting with certain kinds of activity. This activity snowballs into larger and larger types of activities as more and more people join our standing group. So in terms of like what this means for you, the regular membership, I encourage you to be part of the leadership group, be part of the committees we're going to be opening up. But if you can't, Please keep submitting content, post to a Facebook, submit content to be posted on Twitter once that's going on, submit content to be posted on YouTube when that's going on. If you can't do that, I encourage you to talk about our group as much as possible with your colleagues, with your friends, your coworkers, wherever you may be. If you have more than one job, talk to them about what we're doing. If you know anyone who knows other English teachers, if you have any other connections to other universities, talk to them about us, talk to them about what we're doing. Again, the message I got from the Cs is that there are people who are interested in the type of work and the type of scope and focus that we have. Class issues in the classroom, class conflict in the classroom, the working class perspective as a unique standpoint in the instruction of writing, right? The interest in these things is there, and we need to take advantage of that interest to bring people in so that we can all do good work together. And so no matter how active or how not active you are in the group, however many ideas you have for the work that you're doing, things to be published, content to be uploaded, there is a way for you to help, is what I'm saying here. And so, talking about outreach, I do want to go deeper into that, right? I think the introduction of new members, building up the raw membership, as I said on the first slide of this first action item, I want to go deeper into how we're going to do that, how I would like for us to be able to do that. Excuse me. So I have here 5 important, separate but interconnected outreach projects, and all defined by the type of people we're trying to do outreach to. So we have graduate students, undergrad students, independent scholars, other non-full-time English teachers, and then any kind of English instruction happening inside and outside the university. So I think you all know what this means. I do want to go over how the outreach strategy is different for each of them. I want to start off with the 2 most important groups of people for our purposes. In my opinion, I've marked them with the little delta sign here. And so graduate students, I really do think that the future of this group, the future of this group is going to be sustained by grad students. Grad students are really going to be the lifeblood of what we're doing here. I don't know how many of you have looked at the statistic of this kind of thing, but enrollment in humanities majors is collapsing. It has been collapsing over like the last decade. We're really entering a sort of crisis here in terms of like the next generation of English instructors in the university and English teachers in general outside of the university, right? We're all going to be looking at a pretty dire future where there may be like half as many English teachers at the Cs as there is right now, you know. I think in terms of just the Cs, every standing group, every special interest group is going to be dealing with that. And I've not heard a real solution for how they're going to be able to deal with that. Because when you think about like what the purpose of the standing group is to build connections so that you can get together and do real scholarship together. You can forward the field in a way. And in terms of like what I care about, which is the future of the standing group and the future of our scholarship, making sure that grad students are, the young scholars, the young teachers who are still there, who are still trying to fight for positions, who still really want to teach English, they're introduced to our group early. And then they're building their networks inside our group as early in their careers as possible, right? So that's what I would say is the most important thing for us. I didn't know I could do that. Sorry. That's going to be the most important thing for us, getting grad students into our ranks. And I think we'll need special infrastructure for grad students. I think for those of you who are looking to contribute to the group on your own, again, talk to your colleagues, talk to the other professors, talk to your adjuncts, but talk to who the young people are in your programs, right? Who are the grad students who are in there, they're really passionate about teaching English. Who are they? What do you know about them? Can you steer them to our group, right? We want to be able to focus on that as much as possible. I think the group I'll be and if you want to too, I invite you to, building special materials and programs specifically aimed at graduate students so that they hear word of our group. They hear word of our group as early as possible in their careers, and they're brought into our fold. And I think specifically building an infrastructure and making materials targeted at them is really what's going to bring them in, right? That they can be sold on our group as, oh, wow, there's this group of people who are talking about this kind of stuff. No one else in our university is talking about it. No other kind of scholarship is happening about this kind of stuff. But here, this group is doing this. And that can leave a very strong, lasting impression on the young scholars going up through the ranks in the here and now. And that is going to ensure the future of the healthy future for our standing group. The next I want to point out are independent scholars. I am an independent scholar myself. That's part of the reason why I'm able to dedicate so much time to this, right? I don't have university obligations. And I think targeting this group of people is going to be so important, I think, even just for the Cs in general, because there are, there is, first of all, not going to be a whole lot of English instructors in the future. And a lot of those English instructors aren't going to want to stick around in the university, or the positions they'll get at university is going to be way more precarious than they were even in this generation. The next generation of English instructors are not going to be as secure in their positions as we are, as precarious as we are right now. So we're going to be looking at a body of people who are not attached to universities in any meaningful way. It's worth calling them independent scholars. I had this discussion with the independent scholar SIG when I was at the C's, right? Where even if you are teaching at a university, your work, your interest in research and scholarship may not be something that university is interested in supporting. So though you may have a job teaching, you are still pursuing your scholarship independently. And so just like with graduate students, I think building up a unique and specific infrastructure in support of independent scholarship is definitely a place, is a niche that we can fill that I don't think anyone else at the C's is filling in right now, right? Or very few people are trying to fill in right now. That's another place where we can propagate ourselves, where we can bring people into our fold, and it's particularly because people pursue this type of independent scholarship because the labor field is so bleak right now. They're going to be primed to think about class issues, class conflict in the classroom, the way class stratification in society affects the university. These will be the types of people who are going to have the best ideas, in my opinion, on how to further our scholarship. And so, yeah, I think these two types of people, grad students and independent scholars, are going to be the most important outreach programs that we're going to do. And in the near future, I'll try and delineate how we're actually going to do that. Besides that, I also have here undergrad students, other non-full-time English teachers inside and outside university. So with the last two bullet points, right, English teaching happens all over the place outside of university. College level instruction in English happens all over the place outside of university. And it's important to have the perspective of people who are not teaching in a university right now, but who are teaching college level curriculum in some way, right? Wherever that exists. I'm also a tutor, right? There is a lot of tutoring focused on adults, on university age students, even though we don't work at the university. And we don't have a place to be able to talk about the issues that we're seeing in terms of, again, class conflict, working class pedagogies. What we're doing here in this standing group is the only place that's doing that kind of work right now. And so the more that we can convince these people to come and share their perspectives with us, to be a part of what we're doing, to have, again, to contribute to the publication of meaningful scholarship, even though they're not a part of a university, that can be an opportunity we can provide that very few other organizations, standing groups, whatever, can provide. And then undergrad students, so of course undergrad students cannot contribute really to scholarship in the same way that all of us can here as graduate students, as older instructors who have been at this for a long time, but these are people, undergrad students are, how do I want to say this? It's important that they know who we are and that there are people thinking about this kind of stuff. when we're thinking about the future of just English instruction, right? Kind of like rebuilding the image of what that is and what it's concerned with can be deeply meaningful. And so I think what our outreach to undergrad students is not really about enrolling them in our membership, but more about including their perspectives in our research and inviting them to have voices and contributions to our scholarship. And so that, I think, is a very different kind of project. Again, that's stuff that we'll go over in the future, but it is a topic I think we should be meaningfully thinking about. We may even be able to present it at the Cs, depending on where our research takes us. And just even with just these projects, I think we'll be very busy. We'll all have different ideas of how we're going to do outreach to these types of people. So they'll all require different types of messaging, different kinds of infrastructure, like I said, and different types of materials to spread around. Well, again, I'll be taking care of most of that. If you want to help me with that, please reach out to me. But that is outreach, right? Or at least that's the broad sort of topics of outreach that I want to talk about. Now I want to talk about the tactics of outreach. So there I'm talking about the broad strategy. Let's talk about some tactics. And so phase 1 of base building before we are in Spokane is groundwork, right? So stuff that we're not doing on the computer as much, but things that we are doing in our workplaces. So there's a lot of pavement pounding. I said this at the business meeting too. I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with like volunteering for campaigns or volunteering, political campaigns or any kind of like messaging, any kind of like non-profit messaging stuff, right? The kind of things where, you see people handing out flyers, they're building little kiosk in like the quad of a school or whatever, stuff like that. We're going to be doing similar kinds of projects. We're really going to be out there, not knocking on doors exactly, but something similar in our workplaces, right? So what that means is that we are tapping the shoulders of our friends and colleagues. I said this before, but we all have friends. Well, actually, I don't know about that. We all know people at least at our universities. And again, if you want to contribute, this can be a very easy thing for you to do, which is, hey, you know what? I'm a part of this extremely interesting, this extremely innovative, this extremely like groundbreaking group of scholars doing work that very few people are doing at the most important English instruction conference in the nation. Do you know about it? Most of them are going to say no, right? And that is a great way to be able to spread the word to people who care about these issues, but don't know where to go to talk to people who think like them about those issues, right? We need to think in terms of like we're filling in a niche that very few other networks of scholars in English instruction are filling up, right? And so that is like very basic stuff. You're talking to the people you already know at your workplace and telling them about us. A step above that is, excuse me. A step above that is if you are part of any other types of groups at the Cs, if you outside of the Cs, a university or your network of universities, if you're part of any other academic groups, you're on listservs or emailing lists, advertise our group on those lists, advertise our groups in those academic groups. Again, we are doing something very few other networks of scholars are doing. And so for a lot of us, when we talk about our standing group to other people, this will be the first time that those other people are hearing about a project like this, right? So if you're already part of those networks, this is something new for you to contribute in those groups, and this is something you can do for us in propagating the word. And so beyond that, if you've tapped out your connections at your college, you've already spread the word on your listservs and academic groups. Another type of important thing you can do is propagate our members' materials, publications, books. So, for example, Jennifer Beach has a very good book on working class. I'm going to fuck this up. She has a great book on our field of study. And I think if you can't get people to join in our group, letting people know about the work that members of the group have already done is a great way to spread the word besides that. So again, like, assigning Jennifer Beach's book for one thing, but also like we're going to be doing podcasts and stuff on the YouTube channel, other kinds of projects. The more that you can incorporate, you can share that with other people, the more that you can incorporate that into classes, the more you can recommend that as things to incorporate in people's classes, right? The more that you can just share those things as like, hey, here's this meaningful research or scholarship happening, the more that people hear of us, and the bigger our base becomes. And so beyond that, if you are teaching, no matter how big your student group is, you're talking about our group to our students, right? To your students. And so a lot of our students don't know what we do at the C's. I have always tried to let them know like what this is about, what I do when I have to take a week off from teaching them, and like why it's important. In the past I've had them do like little panel presentations and kind of like mimicking the way the C's works. And so I think being transparent about this side of our profession, being like, I'm not just your first year English teacher. I'm not just your English for critical thinking about literature teacher. I'm also part of this incredible network of people who talk about working class issues, who try to forward working class interest, and for a lot of our students, that'll be them. We can talk to them about like, I'm really working to advocate for people like you. That's kind of the message you want to be telling your students. And who knows if those students grow up to become English teachers, most of them won't. But in terms of like interest in what we're doing, because I talk a lot about membership, right? Membership is the most important thing. But the base isn't just the membership, it's just people who take what we do seriously. And so the more that we can share this with our students, the bigger a base we build of people who take us seriously as a group and who take us seriously as individuals for being part of the group. I think that's important too. And so that's phase one. That is the hard work of just talking to people about the group. The next part is increasing our footprint. So once we have like a significant number of members, I'm thinking by next year, right? We'll see how we are in January. But once there are people in here who are excited, who are active, who really want to contribute to something, that is when we start thinking about, okay, now we need to do something, right? That is what I mean by our footprint. So our spread across the scholarship, our notoriety across other English teachers, right? And it's going to be about increasing those aspects of our group. So there are 4 different aspects to that idea. The first part is helping our members get published wherever, whenever they can, right? So that is one big important thing about groups like this at the C's. We build these networks so that people can help us notice our research, notice our theory and essays, help people get eyes on them. And so again, if you're thinking about a way you can help, right, reach out to people who are working on something. Reach out to them and tell them, like, I would love to take a look at it. I would love to share this with people. Or if you happen to be someone who knows, like, a platform to get their work shared on, reach out to people or offer that information to the members of the group, as they do in other standing groups. Beyond that, part of our footprint is the digital footprint. It's not just the academic footprint. It's not even just content. It is just like, is our public-facing apparatuses active and visible, right? Being more visible on social media. Do we have lots of posts? Do we have lots of activity in our groups? Do we have lots of views and comments and eyes on our stuff? That shows activity and productivity, at least in a certain sense. A little bit more ambitious than that, having our own non-traditional publishing and media content machine. So we're building the website, which, it's not going to be the scholarly journal of like peer review and all that stuff. That's a project later down the line, but it will be a place where members of the group can get their writing on. And of course, we're going to have the YouTube page. We might even thinking down the road a place like be like a Medium network or something like that. Some places where people can post their content presented in a non-traditional way. And the more we have that, the more we have like, here's a video where Dr. such and such talks with independent scholar such and such about this issue. Here's their research. This is what we're doing. The more that we have that going on in 100 different places, the better that we look and the more that we further our scholarship. And so all that feeds into the last part, which is maintaining an active public-facing aspect of the group. So for non-members who are getting introduced to us by spreading the word about us or by falling onto us from like Twitter or seeing our things on YouTube, right? Whenever they look at that, they must always see that, oh, this is still active. They last did something just a couple days ago or a week ago or 2 weeks ago. They're still doing stuff. This is an important and serious scholarly project. That is what all this is about. And so, here I want to talk. So those are the two phases of the plan here. And so once we're at Spokane in 2024, we're kind of done with phase 2. We'll see how that turns out. At Spokane, we're going to come together. We're going to look at how all this has shaped up. And so part of that sort of review, part of reaching these goals and reviewing them for Spokane are these 3 points, which is that I would like to be able to formally recognize people who manage to recruit the most members, right? So if you're someone who's really working on this, there are a lot of people who are like, this person told me about this group and I want to be a part of it. The more people who say that about you, I would like to have a place, maybe at the business meeting, maybe somewhere else, to recognize all the work you did. Maybe even give you like an award or something. I'll talk about that in a second. I also want to formally recognize active members, so the people who are posting the most, sharing the most, uploading the most, stuff like that. I want them to be able to be seen, again, at our business meeting or a different type of meeting elsewhere, at like our lunch or like a special dinner or something like that. I want to be able to say, hey, this person has done a whole lot of work. Stand up and give them a clap. And like we might even have an award. I'll talk about that soon. Something nice and simple. You might even put on your CV, something to like take and hang on your wall or put on your fucking desk. Or I don't know, I'll give you like $50 or something. I don't know. Like I'll come up with something. Like I'll buy you a car, or I'll buy you a steak dinner or some shit, right? Whatever, just anything to be able to be like, hey, this person, they made 50 Facebook posts over last year. Here's a new Honda Civic or something like that. But that's something to talk about further down the line. And so to that end, I do want to think about, formalizing a more structured referral system in terms of like being able to be like, hey, who invited you? We would like to be able to give them credit, in terms of like the people who are coming being like, hey, I want to be a part of this. And they'll be like, oh, where did you hear of us? Right? That way we can keep track of like who's contributing to the increase of the membership base. But that is when we're actually at Spokane. And speaking of being at Spokane, whatever. There's a couple points to go over with that. So the call for proposals has already reached out. It's going to be due in like a month. The actual proposals, I think it's like mid-April or early May. I forgot exactly. But obviously I'm going to be there. I'm going to be part of the panel. And so the question here is, this is really the call to the group. Who is going to be on the sponsored panel? What is it going to be about? I would like to invite any of you who want to come with me to the Seas at Spokane. Let's talk about what we're doing. Let's come up with a proposal. I had such a great year with Justin and Jennifer. We were working from the last Seas when it was virtual all the way to when we were in Chicago in hotel rooms, like up to the very last minute, whittling this down. That was a big, great time. I would love to have that again with whoever wants to. So I'll be speaking more about that in a second. But besides that, right, there'll be a lot of us who will be there who won't be part of the sponsored panel. And, you're going to be part of your own individual presentations or group presentations, or you may need help. You may be wanting to propose something. And so what I want to do for this year is to be able to have sort of a structure, whereas like, if you are organizing within the group, you're a member of the group, and you want to give a presentation with other members of the group outside of, the sponsored panel, the standing group, the leadership, me, can help provide you with like some tips and ideas for what to talk about, how to present it, what you should do. It will give you our resources to be able to do that kind of organizing. And I want to do the same thing with individual presentations, though obviously I do want to encourage, hey, you should get together with other members of the standing group, form your own groups, and then propose a group presentation, a group panel or a group workshop. And then, when you're at the C's, you say, hey, we're all part of the working class culture and pedagogy standing group. Big thanks to them, the leadership people who helped us put this together. They're such great guys. Please go join them, stuff like that. And so I know I want to offer this help because I know a little bit about having successful presentations and successful proposals. I've got accepted as an individual presenter, as an independent scholar, 2 years in a row, right? I've never been denied a space at the C's. I think going back, I took a break from the C's, like a 3-year break from the C's. And before then, the last time I was denied a space had to be like 6-7 years ago. So I know a little bit of something about how to craft a good proposal. And so personally, that is the kind of help I could offer to any of you who want to do something like that. And so once we're at the C's, right, we're going to have meetings. We're going to have obviously the physical business meeting, the one that the C's has us put on all the time. There we talk about business agenda items. We vote in new committee members, all that kind of stuff. I also want to be able to have an official standing group dinner, right? We all go out. We'll probably go Dutch, or I don't know. We'll have a Patreon or a Kickstarter where it's pay for our dinner or something like that. We can have a free dinner. I don't know. We'll have dinner together. Maybe there we'll have awards, stuff like that, so that we all feel together as a group. We'll also have get-togethers throughout the week, right? Chicago had all these great museums and tours. Every city we're in, there's always so much stuff to do. And being able to organize, where to go, who to hang out with inside the group, I think would be really cool. Another part of this that I think is important in terms of spreading the word is, reaching out to the local universities and labor groups, right? I forgot which big universities are at Spokane. But of course, around that area, the big metro area there's going to be a lot of littler universities, liberal arts colleges, private places, right? And that's a great time. We can start even now reaching out to these places and be like, hey, the most important English instruction conference is happening at walking distance from where you work. Why don't you come with us to come take a look at it, even give a presentation, propose a presentation, and be part of our group, right? And I think that's super important. I think also being able to reach out to certain labor people who are there to be we're approaching labor issues in a different sort of way. It would be cool to sort of reach out and share our missions and stuff like that. I'll be doing that within the next week or so. I encourage all of you guys to do the same. Whew. And a part of that, I also said awards, right? So there'll be awards for recruitment. I think there'll be awards for activity and for who did the most work and blah, 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 blah. And so we'll be formalizing exactly how we're going to be able to give those awards out. But I would like certain parts of the C's next year to be about recognizing certain members. I think that would be really fun. And I think that would make us feel more like a group and more like a place to be and more like something important, I think is what I want to say. All right, sorry. I had to take a little break. We're back. All right, so that's the plans for what to do at the C's once we're actually there. So that the culmination of everything we're sort of talking about here. So besides that, but those are the two main important things. Planning for the C's itself, what we're actually going to do there, and increasing the membership base, increasing the activity inside the membership, and increasing the number of eyes looking at us from the outside of the group. What comes next is sort of the different ways that we're going to facilitate that. So this is action item 3, social media, which is going to be a big arm of what we're going to be doing for the rest of next year, right? This is going to be very, very important in terms of when we're doing work and we're sharing it with each other, where are we sharing it? Where are we publishing it? Where are we uploading it? It's really going to be on social media. And so what is this specific social media goal? As I said here, The idea is that by the time we're at Spokane, we have across a couple of different platforms, across a couple of different like social media sites and like content sites, we have an extensive recent history of activity, of uploads, of comments, of tweets and posts and stuff like that, going back the entire year that people can look at and be like, oh, these people were busy. Look how many people they were spotlighted. Look what they were talking about. Look how many people were doing stuff, right? That's the goal. That's the goal to have for 2024. And so I just want to talk about really quickly what my plans are in terms of like the social media groups we'll be focusing on, the social media websites we'll be focusing on, and some others for consideration. So the 5 ones to be thinking about are Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Discord, and Instagram. Each of them they're all very different from each other, and so they're all different from each other. They're all going to cover a different purpose. They're all going to serve a different purpose to us. So first of all, to talk about Facebook, which currently exists, that's not going to change too much, right? It's still going to be a private group. And the main purpose of Facebook, as far as I can see it, is, as I said here, we're sharing member news, we're posting personal achievements with each other, and we're sharing like larger news going on around the world and sort of insular WCCPSG news, working class culture and pedagogy standing group news. So like if there's a position open, we're going to post it there first. If like, I don't know, if I get arrested or something, it'll be posted on the Facebook group first or something. I don't know. That kind of stuff. And so the important thing there is that where we have our own social media space where members are free to post at will, right? And that's going to be different from the other ones, which are about content, and Twitter, which is going to be about like just posting what we're doing. In like the Facebook members, you're free to post whatever you want without like a whole lot of moderation and whenever you want. And you can have people talk just with you about what you post. And I think that's important. And we'll keep using Facebook in that capacity. And so Twitter, which we don't have yet, that's something I'm going to be building pretty soon. And so Twitter is not like Facebook. Twitter is like, I don't know if you guys have been on Twitter. Basically, it's a little like mini blogging site for where 1,000 people can come and look at what you posted. So there, it's not really like a community building sort of thing, especially because our Twitter is going to be an organizational Twitter as opposed to like a personal one. And so idea with Twitter, as far as like how it serves us, will be it'll be in control of the leadership, in control of the committees. And those individuals will be responsible for posting content and opinions on them. On Twitter is where we'll be advertising standing group related news to mostly an audience of non-members, right? So if you think about Facebook is where we're talking to each other. Twitter is where we're going to be like talking to people from outside the group and kind of like outside of academia and the English teaching spheres in general, right? And I think that's super important in terms of base building, increasing the number of eyes on us. And that's how Twitter is going to serve us. And then, but in a way, it's going to be similar to Facebook in terms of like, we're also going to be sharing labor news from around the world, labor news in colleges, which I think is a big part of what we do. And on Twitter, there are already networks of scholars who care about the kind of things that we care about. And so having our organizational Twitter on there to be able to connect with them, the already existing digital networks of scholars, is important. It could only ever do as good, and that's important. The other part, YouTube, right? So YouTube, again, nothing at all like Facebook or Twitter. There it is content. It'll be a way to publish content. Online scholarship, podcasts, member interviews, blogging at conferences, which we'll do a lot in 2024. There's probably a different word for that, but honestly, when you think about like filming each other and summarizing like what we're doing at the season 2024, it basically just is blogging and other such kinds of like video content. This is going to be a great place for like if you're someone who wants to be a part of like non-traditional sort of scholarly discussions, YouTube's gonna be a great place to do it. I do my own podcast sort of anonymously, and it's a very fun stuff. Not a whole lot of people look at it, but I honestly go back and forth on this in terms of like when you think about our YouTube channel being like a halfway decent YouTube channel, there's gonna be more eyes on that than there are on most people's articles at any one point. And so that doesn't make it better or more useful than traditional publishing, but it is a great way to get people's eyes on our members, their names, and what they're doing. YouTube will be great for that. And so Discord, which also has to be built. So if you don't know what Discord is, I can't show it here. I have it. It's basically, if you ever used Skype in the past, it's a similar kind of thing. It's way better than Skype. It's about, it's a chat platform, basically. If you ever use Slack, it's kind of similar. What makes Discord better? Well, Discord is better than Skype in terms of like being able to do like the video calls, just being a better piece of software. But it has the upper hand on things like Slack because it is just way more common. I think what's important with social media, the social media part of our action plan, our Spokane plan for this year, is the attraction of young scholars, of younger people, the kind of people who are going to be doing the most important scholarship in the future, right? This is where they are, and this is where they're talking. This is where they're getting a lot of information from, and it's important to be present in these places. And it's important to be present in these places also because this is where we're going to really diversify our membership base. You know, the Seas overall is a very white place. I'm not white, obviously, not talking about me, not talking about a lot of people who are in the standing group right now. But I will tell you, I was there going to presentations by myself, talking in presentations that talked about labor issues, that talked about inclusion and diversity issues. And I was like almost at each and every one, like the darkest skinned person there. Maybe at some of them, the only non-white person there, you know? And so the reason why that is because a lot of the way that we talk to each other are kind of, and this is a huge topic that I'm not going to get into too much here, but I think all of like the traditional ways that we talk to each other is not conducive to inviting and incorporating the voices of scholars of color like myself, right? Whereas social media definitely is, and Discord, way more than the other ones, is the place where a diversity of voices and identities can be reached. You know, I was talking to some trans scholar over at the Seas just this past season at Chicago, and she told me that the very typical trans woman joke, which is like what do you call a group of trans women? A Discord chat, a Discord server, you know, because that's what's popular with a lot of groups of people who don't look exactly like we do, you know, and that's where we need to be talking with them. Another important thing about Discord is a lot of our students will be super familiar with it already, and I have heard from other scholars that I was talking to outside this as the standing group at the Seas. That a lot of their communication in the class happens on Discord, not really through their emails, but they have sort of a class Discord server. And that is really a place where we can be at. That is something that can really separate us from a lot of other sort of academic groups, right? Having our own personal Discord where members can communicate with each other on a rapidly growing chat platform. And I think the point of this is eventually to replace sort of the old sort of ossified listservs and email-based exchanges. That's not to say that email will never be a part of what we do, but in terms of like easy and rapid communication, Discord is way better for that. And I would really like to see as many people as possible on the Discord when it's built. And so Instagram too, I think is an important place. Instagram, again, very different from the other ones. It's mostly about images and videos. And so how can we use Instagram for our purposes, right? Instagram is very good for uploading infographics, as I said there, about our ideas and our scholarships, about posting posters, basically, right? Where you can have like a picture of one of our members being like, congratulations to this person. You know, we can have like job postings on there. You know, in the country I'm living in right now, it's very common for job postings to be on Instagram as opposed to like on a dedicated job board, Instagram and Facebook. And so being in that space, in that capacity, I think can also be important. If any of us know a place where we can find work, that can being able to propagate that work on our group Instagram, I think can be a place where we can increase our profile. And I, of course, also like along the same along the same topic, whenever there are opportunities to volunteer to do work in the SG, like say, oh, there's a committee chair, there's a committee position open, oh, there's a co-chair position open, we can post that on Instagram and we can get eyes on that, right? And it's also very good for like noticing individual members. It's way better, I think, than Facebook or Twitter in that respect, where it can be like, hey, like I said before, here's a picture of a member we want to spotlight. Here's the things that they're doing. Here's why they're important. Here's a big poster. We celebrate that. We post that on Instagram. That it can be super important. So those are the 5 main projects I want to do. Facebook is already done. So the other 4 ones are things that are going to be built. So for the future, when like the new leadership group takes over, if I'm still part of it or if I'm not, right? TikTok, there's Mastodon, there's me being part of a podcast network, right? That costs a little money. It's not that much though. Like I'm on SoundCloud. It costs like $12 a month for me to be able to just upload as much as I want. And in other places, it can be cheaper to be part of like a podcast distribution thing if we have our own podcast. It's stuff to publish on there, right? And we can say the same thing about TikTok and Mastodon, just in different places to publish our work. That can be something to talk about for the future though. All right, so now we're going to get into a slightly more ambitious part of my action plan here. So I'll just let you read what it says here. So this is action item 4, which is decentralizing the standing group. So this part is going to talk in detail what I mean about when I say decentralizing it. As it says here on the PowerPoint, so this I made this action item in response to a common problem I heard when I was at the C's when it comes to like how useful a lot of standing groups are. And the problem there is that like the work and direction and advancement and scholarship that happens inside any one given standing group, too often that happens or doesn't happen at the whim of the chairs, of me, basically, right? So towards addressing this problem in our group, right, so that everything is not just dependent on what I feel like doing at any particular point in time, this action item is about decentralizing that responsibility away from me and into the group equally across its members as much as possible. And I'll talk here what I mean by that. So the 2 important aspects of decentralizing, the 2 terms I want to talk about here, decentralizing power away from me and into the hands of the membership. I want to talk about decision-making power and association work. So decision-making power. What do I mean by that in terms of the standing group? So I have defined decision-making power here in terms of what can be done in the name of the standing group, basically. So here I have a couple examples. So I define decision-making power here as the ability to start new projects, act in the name of the standing group prior to advising the chairs and the leadership group, to claim work and scholarship done by members in, like, say, you're working with members, you're a member, you're working with members, other members of the standing group, and you can be like, oh, we're doing this as part of the standing group, right? This is work that we're doing as members of the standing group. This is work done on behalf of the standing group. You can do that without prior acknowledgement from the leadership group of the working class culture and pedagogy standing group, right? Without telling me about it. You can, right? That's what I mean by that. So the idea here is that you can decide to be able to do certain things, certain projects, certain ideas, and without always needing the approval and direction and acknowledgement of the chairs, right? And that's all equally as part of the standing group as stuff that's initiated by me or any future chairs, right? And in that respect, the chair would be there simply to acknowledge it after the fact, to adjudicate it after the fact, and to make sure that the committees like post it on the social media, to make sure that it's sufficiently rewarded when we do have stuff for like awards and things like that. But the point here in terms of decision-making power is that you can decide to do things on behalf of the standing group without always needing the approval of the chair and the leadership group. And so in terms of like, what do I mean by things done in the name of the standing group? This is what I mean by association work. So association work here is work that's done by the members of the standing group, our own members, that's claimed as done as part of the standing group in association with the standing group, right? So I gave an example of like, say you're a member, you want to do some project with the other members, right? You can be like, oh, this is work that's done in association with the Working Class Culture and Pedagogy Standing Group, right? Without needing direct and clear approval from the chairs to give you that designation. And here I want to go over some definitions for what that means, right? To be able to do things and be like, oh, I'm doing this as part of the standing group without needing to notify the leadership or the chair. So this is association work. So these are 4 different criteria. They're all independent of each other. They're all ors. So as long as like anything you're doing fulfills one of these ideas, that's work that could be like, oh, I did this on behalf of the standing group. I did this as part of the standing group. This is as much my work as it is part of the work we do as the standing group, stuff like that. So work can be like traditionally published articles or papers. Work can also be like any kinds of like political activity you're doing. It can also be like the stuff you post on YouTube, right? Any kind of stuff you can imagine as involving scholarly work. You can say it's done in association with the standing group if that work is published on Working Class Culture and Pedagogy Standing Group platforms. So like the website in the far future, its own journal, on our YouTube page, on our Twitter page, Instagram, stuff like that. If you're contributing to content on those platforms, if you're publishing with us, that's work that's done in association with us. You can also, I gave this example before, if you're a standing group member and you're working with a group of scholars and the majority of them are standing group members, you can be like, oh, this work was done in association with the standing group, right? So, but if that's not you either, if you're not part of the standing group or you're a minority in the group, but you're like, hey, leadership, this is the project I want to do with some other people. They're not part of the standing group, but we would like your help in like giving us money or stuff. Like when we have money to be able to grant us money or resources, if the leadership lets you have those funds and resources, then you could be like, oh, this work was done in association with the standing group, which is pretty common practice with a lot of different types of like grants or access to platforms and stuff like that. And here is I think the most open type of work done in association with the standing group. If you're trying to do some kind of work, right, getting published or just contributing to our content or doing any kind of work at all, the way I've defined it here is like if you're doing that work and you're doing it with prejudice shown in favor of standing group members in terms of editing, review, commentary, research assistance, access to prior research and resources, etc., then you can say you're doing work in association with the standing group, right? So maybe you're not a part of the standing group. Maybe you're working with people who aren't a part of the standing group, but if you're using research from members of the standing group, if you're asking them to come and edit your stuff, to review your stuff, to provide commentary, to assist you in that stuff, you can say that it was done in association with the standing group. And so not just in general, but like if you choose us first, if you choose our resources and our people first, you can say that your work was done in association with the standing group. So that is a bit fuzzy there. We'll be defining what that means in the near future. But the whole point of this is that it's all supposed to be sort of open and free to people, whether they're part of the standing group or not, to be able to say that they're doing work in association with us without needing a lengthy review process by the chair, by the leadership committees, by the leadership group of people who lead the standing group. And the point of that is that, like, again, it was increasing productivity, increasing activity. We give power to the members to be able to do their work with us, again, without a lengthy review process of like, oh, we need to run this by the chairs. We needs to be approved by the chairs. Need to be approved by this committee. No, we can just post it, and as long as it follows this criteria, that is work that can be claimed as part of the standing group. That is work that you can say was done in association with the standing group. And that way, that benefits your work because you're doing that work with an established network of scholars who have helped you. And you can say that when you publish, whatever it is you're publishing. And we can say that that work was done as a part of our group. And again, that makes us look better. Whew. And so towards this goal, I'm going to be proposing some restructuring to like the bylaws, to the committees, in order to facilitate the decentralization of power away from me and the chairs. And that's what we're going to be covering next in the fifth action item, which is committee responsibilities. What that really means is the restructuring of committee responsibilities. So according to the bylaws, right, we have to change our bylaws to be able to implement this. And so in order to do that, we need to have a meeting of the members. I think it can suffice just to be able to put this out to a vote. We'll see how that works. But this is what I'm proposing in terms of how the committees will look like. So I just want to define really quickly what the committee, in this decentralized standing group, what are the purposes of the committees? So the committees are the main organizing force of the National Working Class Culture, Pedagogy, and Pedagogy Standing Group. And so these committees are defined by its relationship to the Cs and the NCTE. And that is what makes them important in terms of like they are the point of contact. And I'll say this later. They are the point of contact between the membership of the standing group and the Cs and the NCTE, which is where we get our legitimacy from, our association with the National Council of Teachers of English and the 4 Cs, right? And that's why the committees are important for making sure we keep that relationship together. And so these are the new committees I want to create for this year towards the purpose of decentralizing power away from the chairs. So the first committee is the leadership committee. So the leadership committee is very similar to what the chairs fulfill right now. So there are still 2 chairs, but the chairs serve and craft policy with the broader leadership committee. So this committee, just like the chairs, they meet yearly at the business meeting to talk about standing group-wide policy and goals, and to manage the standing group's purse whenever we do actually have money, right, in the future. The leadership committee also creates and hands out awards, which is what I'm doing right now. It handles membership admissions, organizes the C's business meeting agenda, like I just said. And crucially, it also assumes responsibilities of the other committees whenever there are too few members in those other committees for them to do their tasks independently, right? So I'm about to create 2 other committees. Right now, there's just me and the 2 Nicoles. In terms of like being able to handle that social media stuff, right? It's just going to be us for a while. So again, in the future, when this stuff happens and there's not enough people to do all this kind of stuff, people who are part of the leadership committee assume those responsibilities of like handling the social media, handling recruiting of new members, whatever it is in the future that we're doing. So crucially here, the point of the leadership committee is that the members of this committee are made up of members from other committees. So in order to be part of the leadership, you have to be doing work at the other committees, right? So I don't mean to be like all fucking European socialist type where I'm making a fucking like 50 different committees and each committee sends a delegate to one giant committee. Then that committee picks from 5 delegates. It creates this overlord committee. No, I'm not doing that, right? But the point of this is that, if you want to be like part of the leadership, you want to contribute that much, you should also have like a specific way you're contributing to it. So we have a social media committee I'm creating. We have an outreach committee I'm creating. There'll be committees created in the future depending on how big the standing group is, right? And if you want to be a leader, you should be contributing something concise and concrete to the standing group to be able to be on the leadership committee and to be able to be a chair. And so that's the point of that, to be like, if you want this position, you have to be able to say, well, I'm going to be doing this for the standing group as part of these other committees. So those are the members of the leadership committee. And then there are two chairs who are elected by the membership of the standing group from that committee, right? So the leadership group is made up of people from the other committees, and then the standing group membership elects two people from that group of people to be the two chairs, right? So kind of like how it happens now. We're small enough where that's not really a thing. We'll see what happens next year. But like I said, the idea is that anyone who wants to be a chair or a co-chair is already doing something concrete inside the other committees. But that also works vice versa, where if you're like, you don't want to be on the leadership committee, you don't want to be involved in planning the business meeting, creating awards or stuff like that, you know what, you can just do your own work in the social media committee, the outreach committee, blah, 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 right? You don't need to be a leader if you don't want to. If you just want to handle social media, that's your thing. And so what the co-chairs do, the chairs are important in terms of like, they're the two main points of contact between the standing group, the Cs, the National Council of the Teachers of English, the other committees, and the larger membership, right? So that is where the real power of the chairs comes in here, not in making decisions for other people on what the standing group should be doing, but on mediating and facilitating work that happens across the committees, across the membership, and reporting that to the Cs and the NCTE. That is the responsibility of the chairs that I'm redefining here. So another important thing too is that co-chairs also have access to all the social media accounts. They have access to like the website, the publishing platforms, etc., however they may exist in the future. And that's if they don't already have that by being a part of other committees, right? So if you're a chair, you have access to everything that happens inside the standing group. Facebook, Twitter, everything, you know what's happening all over the place. And you're able to talk about that with the Cs and the National Council of the Teachers of English. That's what being the chair is, or will be. Oh, this got a little funky. I'll fix this later when I upload it. So that's the leadership committee, right? That's what it means to be a leader in the standing group. So beyond that, let's talk about the committees that do like the harder work. So here is the social media committee. And this is very basic. The social media committee is made of members who just manage the standing group social media accounts on a year-long basis, right? Obviously, we reevaluate members on committees every year, more or less. And so for the year that you're part of the committee, you manage the accounts, you decide what gets published on the social media accounts, you process requests from members to publish certain content on these social media websites. Because that's going to be an important thing too, right? Because for things like the Twitter and the YouTube and the Instagram, it's impossible to just open up that account to everyone in the membership who just wants to post whenever they want. So this committee is going to be important in terms of like, hey, if you have something you want to publish, notify the people on this committee, and they'll get it onto YouTube, they'll get it onto Twitter, they'll get it onto Instagram. And so these members are voted from the larger membership. So if you want to be on this committee, right, at the next business meeting, if this still exists, you'd be like, I want to be on a social media committee. We have a vote. You're there. All that good stuff. The last committee I want to talk about, so we're only going to have 3 committees right now. And then throughout the year and at the Cs, we'll reevaluate how many more there needs to be. But I think these are the 3 basic committees in terms of like the 3 basic responsibilities I want them to have. This last one is the outreach committee. So we had this huge discussion on base building to start this presentation. And the outreach committee really is where the people who are going to be responsible for managing all that on the standing group level, right? Individually, we're all going to be doing our best to be able to tap shoulders, to spread the word, but the outreach committee is who really processes all those new members to be a part of the standing group. So the outreach committee manages the standing group's recruitment policies and strategies. They track the number of members, of new members, they track the number of active members, and they track the total rolling membership. So we don't have an apparatus to be able to quantify that just yet. We will soon. The Facebook group number is one thing, but it's not perfect. We'll be coming up with a way to track that pretty soon. And this membership, the membership on this committee is just like in the social media committee. It's just voted on by the larger membership. So if you're just a regular member, you'll be like, I want to be on the outreach committee. I'll always say, oh, I nominate myself. Okay, we vote. Okay, you're in. Stuff like that. All right. And so this is what I said before. Future committees may be created in the future by the leadership committee as it sees fit. If you're on a leadership committee, you get to decide what stays and what goes. We'll vote on it to make sure this is part of the bylaws pretty soon. But having these committees here is going to be super important in terms of the direction I want the standing group to go and devolving power and responsibility away from myself into the hands of everyone who consider themselves an active member of the standing group. Whew. And so those are the 5 right now action plans. Let's think about beyond Spokane really quick, into 2024, 2025. It's larger. And car alarm was going off. Sorry. Anyway, so action item 6, this is stuff for the future, larger projects and plans. And so one thing that I'm forgetting her name, I'll make sure to give her credit when we actually do this. Proposing to the Cs to reissue an old issue of college English back in 2024 that was called Social Class and English Studies. That was a special issue of college English, which I'm not sure what it's called right now, but that's an NCTE publication. And it would be cool to, as a standing group, to be able to go to the Cs, the NCT, and be like, hey, can we get like a 20th anniversary republication of this with new scholarship? We'll take the helm on that, right? That is a very great and interesting project to do for the Cs. Now, I put it here because as part of like the larger projects and plans, because that's going to require a lot of like talking with the Cs and seeing who's on board with all that. But that is something I can start doing right now. That's something to look forward to, seeing the 20th anniversary of this issue of college English revisited again in 2024. That's not going to happen exactly at the Cs. That's going to happen later on in 2024, but that is something we're planning on doing. Further down the line, we have creating our own open access journal. So we have the website, thanks to Jennifer, the old co-chair. She's done a lot of work to make sure we have that. The website is also going to be like a really great jumping off point in the future to eventually having our own publishing platform, our own journal, our own peer review journal, if, in the wildest of fantasies, right? A peer review journal is not the hugest project in the world. It is a pretty big project, but we're laying down the groundwork to have that a couple years in the future right now. Next is being present at other conferences. So the NCTE does have other conferences. They have their own standing groups. And outside of that, in other academic spaces, they also have their own sort of interest groups and stuff like that. We should be present at those places too. They can form under our name, Working Class Culture and Pedagogy, with our blessing, with the idea, of course, that like the legitimacy and the power of the standing group as a national group rest with the legitimacy that's gained from being part of the National Council of the Teachers of English, right? But that doesn't stop us from being able to spread our name into lots of other different spaces within and outside the NCTE. And so besides that, within the summer, we have summer reading groups. Those were so cool last year. And what that is, we have a reading list. We choose like 2 or 3 like articles, podcasts, videos. We take like a month to read them and watch them. We have a great big like hour and a half where we just talk about them. That's super fun. It's like a little book club, but like with articles and videos and podcasts. And then I'm also going to plan other kinds of like fun Zoom get-togethers so that we're always meeting and talking with each other in a meaningful way throughout the summer before the C's start and then into the future, right? Because we're always having this with or without the C's. We're always talking to each other, and that's a very important part of our socializing together. So yeah, thanks for coming to my Fed talk. I've been a spook this whole time. COINTELPRO 2024. Anyway, so yeah, thank you for listening. Thank you for if you are watching this the whole way through, thank you for doing that. This has been about an hour and 20 minutes, a little under an hour and a half. And so those are all the plans that I have that I want to be able to do with you guys for the rest of this year leading into Spokane. And personally, I think we'll be able to get a lot of stuff done. I think we're going to see a completely reimagined, revamped group by the time we're in Spokane in 2024. There is a lot to do. Like I said, if you're a regular member, you don't have stuff to like publish, to post, to really do. What you can do, again, spread our word, tap your colleagues' shoulders, tap the shoulders of your friends, share Jennifer Beach's book, share all our other books when we have them, share them with everybody, talk to your students about us. That's a very good point. If you're in a place where there's lots of grad students in your English programs, talk to them about us too. That's the way that you as a regular member can contribute to the standing group. Otherwise, feel free to join the committees, right? So when we vote, please vote for these new changes, for the changes to the bylaws, and then be a part of the committees. It's not a lot to do. I'll be assuming a lot of responsibility anyway. And if you want to help me take the responsibility of that on, volunteer to be the co-chair for this year, right? And then we can have a vote next year at Spokane about who the co-chair should be, whether it's still you, whether I'm still there with you, or it's two new people. We'll see, right? And once we have the YouTube, the Twitter, the Instagram up, please get on there and suggest your own content to post, suggest other things to go on and post. We'll have all different kinds of types of videos and podcasts. I already have ideas for what I want to put up there. I hope I get to share that with you guys pretty soon. And yeah, it's going to be a totally different, not totally different, but it'll be a whole new look to the group. It'll be a group with a lot of activity going on. And hopefully it'll be a group with a lot of young blood in it too. A lot of people who perhaps have not been a part of groups like this before. This is a great chance for them to be this is a great chance for us to be their first group. And I think that can be super, super powerful. And that is honestly what the mission should be for this year, introducing ourselves to as many people as possible, to as many young scholars as possible, because they will be who carry on the project of this group into the future when we're no longer able to give up our time and energy and money, most importantly. Right? In the future, we'll be able to think about maybe contributing money to this project. We'll see how that works, right? Dues, maybe, like some of the other groups do. I'm not sure how I want to do that just yet. But I think the important thing I want to leave you here with is this. You can contribute. There is a way for you to contribute if you want to contribute, no matter how big or how small your contribution is, right? Wherever you have a surplus in, you have a surplus in time, or you have a surplus in money, you have a surplus in connections, feel free to give some of that up to the standing group to further our research, our scholarship, our work, if you believe that what we do here is important. I don't have a lot of time. I don't have a lot of money, but I do have a lot of time. And so I dedicate a lot of that free time to be able to do this stuff with you guys. And if you're in a similar boat, please consider doing the same. If you don't have a lot of time, but you do have a lot of money, there'll be, I can't imagine that describes a whole lot of you, but if you can spare some of that, there'll be an apparatus for you to be able to contribute financially to the standing group. Once we understand what we want to do that would require money, there'll be a way for you to do that too. As Kwame Ture said once in a speech he gave, your individual participation, your individual contribution to our organization is absolutely necessary, but your individual contribution by itself is completely insignificant, right? So you need to always think about like how your contribution helps other people, encourages other people to contribute. And you must always think about how when you are contributing to our standing group, what does that do for the group as a whole? What does that do for members, right? Don't just ask like, what can I do to work in a standing group to make myself feel good? You should think about what can I do for the standing group to actually advance the group, right? So that's why I've come up with these action plans. I believe really if we realize this stuff, we're really going to advance the group into a whole new different place than where we are right now. And I encourage you to think along the same lines as I am. And so I think that does it for today. Yep, brought a little bit over an hour, 20 minutes, but I think I'm all done here. I got out what I wanted to say. You'll be hearing a lot more from me in the future. Again, my name is Axel Gonzalez. I am the current chair. If you want to be a co-chair with me, please reach out to me. We'll see how to get that done. Otherwise, I'll see you all next time, either on a video or on our social media with important news and updates and content. So yeah, I'm about to lose my voice. You all take care. I'll see you all very soon.